All right, good morning, everyone. We're gonna get started. Okay. All right, so as you guys see here, let me pull the charts up and then see what we need to see for the day. So here we have SPY, right? Today also we have FOMC. Hold on, let me post this link on my Twitter. One second, guys. Okay, so as we're seeing here, let's see. Okay. All right. So we see here that the market has basically it's kind of like stagnant over the PM session, over the after hours and in the pre-market session today. There's FOMC today at around 2 p.m. and the conference at 2:30 p.m. So this is going to put a lot of volatility into the market. What I'm personally thinking is that we're in this trend currently, right? We're in this trend, and there's still some gaps to the downside that needs to get filled, right? There's, below this level right here, that below on SPY, below 395.60, we still have some downside for price to go to, right? So I'm expecting that we can eventually retrace in towards these levels down here, right? And so we're in this general trend here on SPY. And so what I'm thinking, if on FOMC, if we're bearish or if price, starts to drop, right? Gives a very bearish reaction to whatever they're saying, right? We can see an eventual drop and fit and break of this general structure that we see here, starting with the taking out of 395.67. So that's an important level to mark in your charts, right? I think the AM session isn't going to be as high confidence or has a high probability of a trading day. So it's very important to size lighter and be mindful about what you're doing. If you're going here on ES now, right? If you go here and look at ES, right? Let's put up the other one. MES. Okay. Let me do this one. So if you're looking at ES here, right? We see that again, we're in this downtrend, right? It's trying to break here a little bit, right? But the general concept is still, it's prevalent, right? One thing that makes me think that we might end up pushing lower are all these relative equal lows at the bottom here, right? These are all areas where price can eventually, favor and, push to in terms of, targets, right? So these are what I'm looking for a potential downside. And how I would determine that is if price decides to aggressively break lower, right? So this, right, yesterday's low here, right? So yesterday's low, right, is gonna offer as a bit major pivot point for price. And if price breaks that with aggressiveness, we can see some, eventual downside in in the price action, right? So we ran these highs, right? You start running all these highs here. And again, it could be offered as a, this area could be a pivot point for later on, right? There's a difference between MES contracts and ES contracts, right? If we're looking here, we see that the MES contracts, like the July contracts, hasn't taken out this high yet, right? So it's just something to note, and could come into play a little bit later on, right? And so if we're just looking at this from this perspective here, we see that, price can, it's actually weird. I don't know why it hasn't taken this high out compared to ES. See, it's at the same price too. It's something to note. Let me see something here. Okay. So, anyways, the general concept still remains. Let me chart this out here as well. Just because it's similar to ES, and that's what I trade. Right here, we took out this high. Right, we ran these highs here. We're in this huge fair value gap. Now, again, a couple things could be happening, right? I want you to focus on these relative equal highs up here, which could offer as liquidity, right? But also, pay attention to, your equal lows down here, right? Relative equal lows down here at around 38.94.75, and these relative equal highs are at 40.63.75, right? And you have your ultimate low here, which is the ultimate drawn liquidity, in my opinion, which if price is bearish, that's where we're going, right? So we're gonna mark this red, so for the downside. And we see this general trend here in price, right? General trend here in price, and we see that this could be an area of magnet, right, where price can come to. And so again, it's in this channel, it's in this higher time frame channel here. Even though I don't really trade channels or anything like that, it's just something, it's a point of reference, right? And it's important to note that, right? So if price comes down here, breaks this uptrend, and runs this equal lows with aggressiveness, we could see price eventually come to 37.87 within this week or next week, right? It really comes down to where they want to take it and what the news is, right? I really can't predict that yet. That's why stay off the charts until 2:30. That's when I like to approach and see what the market has in store for me. But until then, I'm not really interested in the price action. And again, just going back on your charts, just it's beneficial to start marking these lows right here. Right, there's relative equal lows here, so it's gonna offer a lot of liquidity in price, right? It's relative equal lows. Relative equal lows, right? Here, relative equal highs up there, right? So again, we're watching to see how price wants to approach these various levels, right? And over here, so it already set some, there are still some relative equal, it took out these equal highs, but there's more right here. So in the morning session, what we could see potentially is we could see a run above these highs, right? Off open, we could see a run above these highs and maybe a potential rejection, right? So what you could be doing is looking for a setup to push to these equal highs up there, right? So I'm gonna mark these out right here, and these are all like important lows right here, right? These levels up here, right? So just have those marked in your chart so you can get to see like what could potentially occur off the or how price wants to react to these levels. Straight. Right. So relative equal. So these are equal highs up here. Equal highs. Okay. So again, now my chart is set up into, understanding where price might go next, right? Again, one other thing that could occur is we have the morning rally, right? We have a morning rally before the maybe FOMC drop, right? So we can most definitely, even rally in towards these zones up here, right? So it's just all relative about, what happens. Again, I'm going to be very patient in the morning session. I might not even participate in the morning session. Just to take risk off risk off my side, right? So that's my chart, right? This is what I'm expecting. I'm trying to see how price reacts to my levels, and then I'd like to place trades after that. Okay, but I'm kind of leaning bearish, but we'll see. So let's go over something else like Apple. As you guys can see here, Apple on the daily time frame is looking like an absolute breakout here. Looks like a beast, right? We had this level up here, 157.53, where price, consolidated right under it, and it had this monster breakout above it yesterday, right? You guys could see here, it kind of chopped around into it, right around 9:30. It bounced off this zone. Oh, where's Tuesday? So Monday it bounced off this zone, and then Tuesday it basically tried to continue breaking through, and it did here, and it had this huge rally above it. I think we can potentially continue as long as these levels hold. So our next target will be potentially like, this gap fill here in price, right? Right, so if prices maintains this, bullish momentum, we can see that potential gap fill on Apple here, right, for this upside. So that's something to note on your charts as well, right? So above 160.56, it's going to be an important level. Right, so 160.52 and 163.07, all important levels for the breakout to watch, right, for this continuation higher. And again, as long as this level 157.50 holds, right, we can see a continuation above that. Let's go over Tesla. So here we see Tesla, right? We're breaking out, obviously, right? We had this low consolidation, then gap up, then continuation of that gap, as you guys can see here. Huge rally, held the trend all day, and again, what we see here is we can push towards this high right here, right? So this high is potentially going to be our pivot point, right? I'm going to redraw this. This high here with this zone could act as a pivot point for price, right? And we see that again, we had that breakout above that level, right? So we have that push here, right? And eventually we can see a potential rejection off this level. And if you reject this, this is going to approach this. This is approaching the 200 level, right? So the 200 level could act as huge resistance on price, and eventually reject it and price lower, and maybe into this gap fill here, right? You can eventually fill this gap here. So it just really depends on how it wants to treat 200. If it breaks and holds 200 and approaches 201, 202 levels, we can see a continuation higher. But again, it really comes down to what the overall market trend is doing. Right? Again, we still have these downtrends here in price. So again, it comes down to FOMC and what it wants to do off these pivot points up here, right? we discussed Apple. Let's go over Amazon. So Amazon here, right? If we're looking at here, this is going to be our major pivot point up here, right? This 101.17 level, huge pivot point. Right? That could eventually reject price or continue higher from here. So this is at $100 level, right? So this $100 level can act as, again, resistance or become support in this, in terms of, just where price wants to go. We had this general breakout of this zone here, right? So we see how we created this area and we broke it out and, above 96, and we had this huge rally into 100, and then a pullback and a continuation higher off that. So it really comes down to how it wants to react at 100 level now, and then that could be, again, major pivot point for price, and we can revisit this area here or this 96 area. So yeah. Anything you guys want me to go over? Any ticker suggestions? Let me know in the chat. Go over AMD here. AMD is just consolidating for now. So again, you want to see how price comes out of this consolidation. You can play the pivot point to pivot point, right, which is this low and this high here, right? You can play that. This is two. Right, you can play the movement from one area to the next like this as well. But what I'm looking for AMD here, what I'm looking for AMD here is to see how price basically bounces in this area. And one thing you can do in a consolidation is you can set your middle point. So from this low to this high, this area is my middle point. Right? So this area here could be a pivot point as well, which it is. And then you can look to see how price wants to react in this zones here, right? So if it's bearish, it's not going to really break above this high, right? It's just going to keep breaking lower below this area here and then keep pushing lower. Okay? So we'll see how that plays out. Meta. Yeah, Meta had this reversal off this drop, and what we could see here, again, our pivot points would be that high and this low here, right? Right, and so price is basically has that swing high and has a swing low, and then within that it has this swing high and it has this swing low, right? So what you're going to be looking for is to see how price, again, 200 is a big pivot point, so it's holding that level fairly nicely, and we could see that if it wants to push higher above 203, right, we could see potentially 205 area again, which is going to potentially act as an area of maybe resistance, right, and reject off there. You also have your pivot point for this area here as well, right? So you want to see if price reaches this upper part, how does it react, and if it wants to retest this high here. If it gives that up, it can eventually push lower, right? And then you can use your intraday time frame trend to help you navigate the chart. So maybe 15-minute and 1 hour, the 5 and 8 EMA on the 15 and 1 hour, and then you can see if if price wants to continue pushing higher or lower off that. So this is how I would chart it. These are my pivot points, and that's how I'd go about it. Um, Anything else, guys? If not, we'll wrap it up. And because that's all I watch is really SPY and ES. Just I only watch that. Here we see that again daily looks fairly strong on on ES, right? So again, one thing that could eventually happen is we have a large rally that is not out of the question. We can have a large rally into, for example, these highs up here even, right? It really comes down to what the FOMC does, right? I really can't tell. Um, but based off the aggressiveness towards the direction we get, we could either continue higher or like go for these highs, right? Or have a huge rejection and break for the lows, right? So again, I really can't tell. You can't predict this stuff. It just really comes down to what the news wants. So that's what I'm gonna go for and see how price reacts on news, and then I'll look to make an informed decision off that. With that being said, guys, DPZ, what's that? Oh, bro, seriously, we're not doing, bro. People trade this. Well, here you go, bro. Here's Domino's Pizza analysis, right? You have that level up there. You have the zone. Right. So if price breaks out of this zone, you can see a continuation for the gap fill, right? Your probably first point of rejection would be this area right there, right? That low at 324.84. So if you have this breakout here, you can see that area. Price go to that area, right? And so it just really comes down to how it reacts to this consolidation zone. If it rejects up here, you can play some downside. But again, use your 15-minute, I don't even know how you trade this, but just, yeah. Maybe use your higher time frames to see how this plays out. That's about it for me. I'm going to go back to the Discord and we're going to live trade from there. If you'd like to join Chance Trading. The link is in the bio. And make sure you guys follow my Twitter. Also leave a like and also subscribe if you haven't. It shows me that, people are engaging and things of that nature. But with that being said, have a blessed day, guys, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's pre-market session.